Hi there. Hi. Hello. Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a former 5th grade teacher turned freelance artist. I taught for 3 years in a school in Brooklyn. I loved it, but there's some things I wish I'd known beforehand. Some insider tips. Number 1, write down the highlights. Kids are hysterical. They're the reason anyone gets into the job, I hope. I hope you're a teacher because you love kids. It's the best part of the job. There were so many hilarious one-liners, shocking, wonderful, wild experiences with kids, and they've all started to morph into one for me. That's my biggest regret from teaching, is not writing down more of the quotes, the moments, the experiences with kids. So do that. Number 2 is that no one really understands what you do. This is a funny one because most people have a connection to education, whether it's because they were a student themselves or maybe they're a parent and they have a kid in school right now. Most people feel like they have some authority to talk about education and the education system. I don't know, but they do. Most people have an idea about what you do on a daily basis, and that idea, for the most part, is pretty off base. It was really hard to convey to people the depth and breadth of what a teacher does. Just be prepared for that. Number 3 is teaching is time consuming. Most people know this, but I think there's also this idea that you teach from 8 to 2:30 or 3 or whatever time, and then you're done and you have summers off and you have all vacations, and that being a teacher means you have all this time off. LOL. No, that's not true. Lesson planning is a doozy. It will take you a long time, especially when you're starting out. And especially if you're a teacher who cares about revising curriculum so that it meets the needs of all your learners and also is relevant and current. I really feel like if you're a good teacher, you're probably spending a lot more hours working than just the school day. I think before I started teaching full-time, I didn't really understand how much space teaching would take up. So while I was teaching those 3 years, a lot of other things in my life fell to the wayside. Friendships, community life, family. I didn't talk to my family as much. I didn't have time for them because teaching is that time consuming, especially in the beginning. Which brings me to my next point. Number 4, you should have consistent support. David and I got married and moved in together 4 months into my teaching career. So he really stepped up. He was cooking almost all the meals. He was cleaning. He was taking care of our dog. He was taking care of all the household things without complaint. And that allowed me to zone in and just focus on teaching for those few years. I don't think that's sustainable. And I think, as the years go by, you get better at managing your time. But that's what I needed at the time, and I'm really grateful I had that support. So I would say before you start teaching, make sure you have some kind of support system. It doesn't need to be a partner. It can be friends, it can be community, people who you can kind of vent to, people who can give you that emotional, social support, even if they're not supporting like physically in your home. Number 5, teaching can feel like juggling. It feels like you have 10 plates in the air, they're all spinning, and they're all extremely precious, so you better not drop them. It feels like you're treading water. If you can keep your head above water, you're great. You're doing good. Would it be nice to make it to the shore, to rest your feet, to look out at the beautiful ocean? Yes, but you're dreaming. That's not gonna happen, at least not your first year. Just keep treading. You need to lesson plan, make accommodations to those lessons so you can make sure all the students in your classroom have the best chance of accessing that material. Meetings with your grade team to plan curriculum on a more macro level. Professional development. You have to keep up with all the individualized education plans in your classroom if you have students with disabilities. That requires meetings and consultation and paperwork. Keep up with families, let them know how their kids are doing research for new materials to make sure that your lessons are up to date and feel engaging for students. You need to think about what specific kids need, whether that's academically or socially, emotionally. Behavior management. Check kids' work to make sure you know where they're at and you can meet them where they are for the next lesson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. That's honestly the tip of the iceberg. It's wild. And remember that most of what I just said falls outside of teaching, right? For 80% of your workday, you are teaching. I saw this hilarious tweet, something like, teaching is the only profession where you need to work before work so that when you get to work, you have time to work. That work creates more work for you after work. And it's so true. Number 6 is that it can get personal quick. Sometimes the things that kids or their parents say to you will really cut deep. And you just need to remember that everyone makes mistakes. You deserve grace like anybody else. You have a lot of power as a teacher. You have a lot of power to determine how a kid feels about themselves, how they feel about a certain subject. It's hard. You might accidentally, especially in the beginning, say something that makes a child feel less than. And you can really beat yourself up about things like that, but you just have to learn from it, move on, do better, and just give yourself grace. Number 7, parents often have an unrealistic picture of what's happening in the classroom. I remember so many instances where it was clear a parent, had an idea about how much focus we should be giving their child or how much specialized attention they should get. And it just was so clear to me, like, oh, you actually don't understand what the day of a teacher looks like. Often it's one teacher. We had 2, so we were co-teachers, and 26 students. I knew schools in New York, like neighboring schools, that would be like one teacher to more than 30 students. You have to be realistic with yourself about what you can achieve in a given lesson, in a given day. You get better and better at it, but the people around you, especially parents, will have an unrealistic idea about what you can achieve, and you just have to be clear with yourself and know, like, I'm one person. I can't do it all. Number 8, if you are sensitive like me, you will cry a lot, especially in the beginning. But often it would be like out of pride. I would notice a kid have an aha moment, or I would have a really good conversation with a kid, and my eyes would start to well up. I don't know, something about teaching just brought my emotions really to the surface. I felt really tender in that first year, and I remember my co-teacher, bless him, so sweet. I'm sure he noticed, like, how could you not? My eyes were watering. And I would just have to continue on, just like push through, and we would just both pretend like I wasn't crying. Number 9 is that building connections with kids will be the most important and most fulfilling thing you can do as a teacher. Like I said before, as a teacher, you hold so much power in the classroom. You have the power to dictate how a child will feel about themselves, how they feel about their self-worth, about their capacity, and oftentimes how you make them feel will last. Maybe for a year, maybe for a few years, but it will build the picture of themselves that they have in their minds. You have to be really cautious. You have to be intentional about building strong connections with kids so that they feel secure, they feel good about themselves. And in the process, that's the most fulfilling thing you can do as a teacher. That's why most people teach, I think, because building connections with kids is fun and it's sweet. It is the sweetness of teaching. I would say some teachers get caught up in the rules, the expectations, the behavior management of your class, and I think those are all important things, but being intentional about fostering positive connections with kids goes way further and will sustain you in your teaching career, because it's a hard one. Being a teacher is hard. Take it from me. I came to a point where it was no longer sustainable for me. But if I were still teaching, you best believe that it would be because of the connections that I build with kids. So yeah, focus on that and you'll be fine. All right, see you next time.